Okay, this video was a request from a conversation we had over at Telegram. Someone was wondering some information on chemical suits that are out there on the market. They just didn't know a lot about them. I can primarily give information on military suits, and even on that it's fairly limited. I know primarily what we used in the US from Cold War to current, or at least what was current up to the end of the global war on terrorism. I know very little on the civilian stuff. I could find very little information, but I will give you what I have. Now, first off here, I'm going from the oldest. This is a US suit. This is a SEAPOG, Chemical Protective Overgarment. That's just the official name for this particular MOP suit, which is Mission Oriented Protective Posture Suit, or your NBC suit, Nuclear Biological Chemical Suit. This particular type was issued 1970s into the 90s, but production on them stopped in the mid 1980s. Now, shelf life on these doesn't matter, at least when it comes to chemical. All of these OD green suits, and it doesn't matter if it's a NATO suit or a US one, are expired. They are past their expiration date. Meaning, these suits have a cloth outer, and underneath that, inside the suit, is activated charcoal. The activated charcoal has lost enough of its efficiency that it is no longer considered effective protection from chemical exposure. This suit would still work in a biological environment and also a nuclear environment. But if I would use any type of cloth suit in a nuclear environment, I would really think about putting some type of rain gear over the top in order to keep the fallout from ending up getting embedded inside the cloth. You are not supposed to wash these, so there would be no way to decontaminate these to get the fallout out of them. The only way to get it out of them is do a suit exchange, put on a new set. So you would have your suit on, you'd have your boots, your gloves, your mask on, and then over the top of this you'd put your rain gear, and then, you know, if you wanted to go the extra protection in a nuclear environment of taping the seams, you could get away with using duct tape. That's probably the only time you'd probably be able to use duct tape in any type of NBC environment is in nuclear when you're dealing with fallout. Now, the information on these, when these were still usable, when you put this on, it's out of the package. It's supposed to be good for at least 14 days if it doesn't get wet, did not get exposed to a chemical agent. If it was exposed to a chemical agent, the protection value on it was 6 hours. So within 6 hours of being sprayed with the chemical and it's starting to soak into the suit, you had to exchange the suit. This down here is the type of bag that it came in. Just a big pillow looking thing. There's nothing on it that said it was a SEAPOG. You kind of got to go off of the markings and the date of manufacture. This particular one, I think the date on it is, looks like 1979 is when this one was manufactured. Now, these suits were upgraded or replaced. With this one, essentially the same thing, but in a woodland camel pattern. This was the BDO, Battle Dress Overgarment. The construction on these were a little bit better. They still had the same way of putting them together, the top and bottom. After you got them on, in order to keep your pants from falling down, you had to do 3 buttons on the back of your jacket here to 3 buttons on the top of the trousers. And then you also had to make sure you went through, do all the zippers, all the ties, closed everything up. You wanted no way for air to get up inside the suit when you were wearing it. Remember, it is a chemical environment. That is a bad thing. That is a very, very bad thing. These suits are supposed to be self-contained once you got them on. And I can tell you from experience, you build up a hell of a lot of body heat in them because there's no way for that heat to escape. Now, with these suits, oh, and the way you can tell this suit from the next one is it does not have a hood. The suit that replaced this did have a hood. Just want to point that out before I move on. Now, these suits had a shelf life of 14 years from date of manufacture. Same as with the SEAPOG. That is when they estimate, at least through testing, that the protective value of the activated charcoal degrades to a point where it's no longer considered safe. I did come across references, though, that a higher level commander could authorize the issue of these suits past the 14-year mark if needed, because there were no newer suits available. These suits were manufactured up into the mid to late 90s, so technically all of these are also past their shelf life when it comes to a chemical weapon. However, they will work for biological and nuclear. Same type of advice I gave you with the SEAPOG on wearing some type of rubberized wet weather gear over the top of this in a nuclear fallout environment. It's the same advice with these. Now down here, this particular one was an older one. It came in the pillow style bag. They did change the bags that these were sent to the units in sometime in the 90s, where they took the suits and they rolled them, put them in essentially like a tube type bag, and that bag was made to match the size of the bags we used as our ice packs at the time. Where these pillow bags, they were a pain in the butt when we had to try to fold them somehow and try to shove them down inside an ice pack. If you're wondering what an ice pack is, I did a video on it. It's on the channel here. Just look it up. Now, exposures. Pulling this out of the bag, just wearing it, if it does not get wet, does not get exposed to a chemical, it's supposed to be good for up to 30 days. Past that 30 days, they're saying you've lost enough of the charcoal inside here that its effectiveness goes down to possibly dangerous levels. If it is exposed to a liquid chemical agent, you're supposed to do a suit exchange, replace this with a new one within 24 hours of the exposure. That's the estimate as to how long it may take for that chemical to soak through all the layers of the suit and possibly get to your skin. In a nuclear environment on both of these, you just brush off the fallout before you get into shelter. That is a video that I am planning on sometime over the next few weeks or the next month or so. I just have to fit it in the schedule. Now, these suits were replaced by this suit. This is the JSList, the Joint Service Lightweight Integrated Suit Technology. These were being researched and worked on during the first Gulf War. They did not enter into U.S. inventories until 1997. Now, the minimum shelf life on these suits is 15 years. They don't even know for sure yet what the maximum shelf life is, because every time they test one of these suits, they still keep passing the tests. And current guidance is, they're saying 15 years. Well, when they check the 20-year suits, we'll see what they say at that point. Now, these suits were improved over the previous. They were lighter weight. These had suspenders on the pants to help hold them up, so we didn't have to use the stupid 3 buttons anymore. But it's the same guidance with any chemical suit. When you put this on, you have to make sure it is form-fitting. You close everything up. No air can get underneath. You even got a hood on these things, which goes around the front of your mask, around your face piece. And there is drawstrings that you have to pull to close it up tight around that mask. No air can get inside. It doesn't matter how hot you get, how sweaty you get. No air can get inside, because if air can get inside your suit, you can get exposed to the chemical agents or biological or nuclear that you are trying to avoid. Now, like with the BDO and the SEAPOG, it is a cloth suit. So if you are in a nuclear environment, wear some type of rain gear over the top. And I'm not talking a poncho. I'm talking jacket and pants if you are in a nuclear fallout environment. Now, exposures on these. If there is no chemical exposure, does not get wet, you can wear this for up to 120 days before the protection is considered to start to be degraded to a point it could potentially be dangerous if you are exposed to a chemical. These suits apparently can be washed, which I was not aware of. If you wash these suits, you can wash them up to 6 times, and even with one washing or one heavy rainfall that you're wearing this in, the shelf life or the service life at that point is 45 days maximum. Now, chemical exposures. If you are exposed to a liquid chemical agent, they say that the minimum amount of protection these will last is a minimum of 6 hours. They should last longer, but they don't have a maximum protection time on liquid for some reason. They just say that 6 hours minimum. Now, if it's a gas that you are exposed to, think on the lines of chlorine gas, your mustard gas, World War I era, phosgene, not a liquid agent, just a gaseous agent. If this suit ends up with exposure to that, and it does absorb some of the agent, they say you can wear this for up to 7 days before you have to do a suit exchange and do decontamination. Now, with the BDO and the SEAPOG, they were issued in whole sizes. And the size ranges I have seen listed are 3 extra small, so XXX small, up to 3XL, so XXXL. I got a feeling those super larger sizes and really small sizes are primarily meant for issuing out during nuclear warfare to select civilian agencies. Can you find these on the market in those really big sizes, really small sizes? Pretty much no. I have never seen them in those extreme sizes on the market. Now, the JSList is different. The JSList gets issued not as a single pack, but in separate pieces. One bag is a coat, one bag is the trousers. And the sizes for each are based off your uniform size. There is shorts, regulars, and longs in the length. And then I think for the general sizes of the suits, I've seen extra small up to XXL. But you're not going to find that many of them out there anymore. Most of the JSList you will find on the market were bringbacks from Iraq and Afghanistan. They were issued to the troops when they went over there. Well, they didn't end up in a chemical environment. They still had them. The military field lost them, told the troops they could take them home, and they ended up on the civilian market. That's how I ended up with a bunch of them. Now, with the JSList, the patterns that I've seen on them, I've seen DCU pattern, desert camouflage pattern. I've seen woodland like this, and I have also seen ACU, the stupid gray-green camouflage digital pattern. I think I've seen some pictures of Marines that had them in their tan desert digital pattern, but I'm not 100% certain on that. It could be a completely different issue of suit that I'm not aware of. Now the next one here, this is an actual Russian NBC suit. Instead of going cloth, they went rubberized, and so did the Warsaw Pact. These suits are giant rubber condoms with hoods all the way down to boots which are attached to the suit. It's one giant piece. And these suits, I cannot find a shelf life on these. Because basically, as long as there is no holes, no tears, it's still serviceable. So really, it's going to depend on storage, and as long as you prevent it from getting dry rotted. Now down here I have most of the accessories that come in the bags. This is how it's issued in a canvas carry bag, the suit rolled up inside. It also comes with a white undergarment, which looks like it's kind of a like a jumper or a overall that you're supposed to wear over the top of your t-shirt or your underwear or in place of it. I'm not sure. And then over this, it has a cotton type overall with hood, and then you would put this stuff on and then the suit over the top. Now if you're a soldier, obviously you're not going to take off your uniform, put this stuff on, and then this on in a chemical environment. You're just going to wear your uniform underneath the suit. I'm guessing these were put in here primarily for their civil defense people. The suit was also issued with 2 pairs of gloves, a cotton type cloth glove, which is meant to be a liner, and rubber gloves which go over the top. Now I'm going to make a note here with gloves, and it's the same with the NATO ones. When you put the gloves on, they go inside the sleeves of the suits, and then you close off the cuff around it. You do not put the glove on the outside of the suit, because then what can happen if you're in a chemical environment? The chemical can leak down the arm of the suit and into your glove, completely negating you having gloves in the first place. So these are probably the better ones to get if you're a prepper, because these suits can be washed. They're made out of rubber. I would not put them in a washing machine, and I wouldn't put them inside a big tub to scrub them off either. I would have the person wear it and then hose them off. Just make sure, do not hit the mask filter if you're hosing them off during decontamination, because guess what happens when charcoal in the filter gets wet? It gets hard and the person won't be able to breathe. So keep that in mind. Now I do have here very, very little info on civilian suits. I'm going to go into that first here. The civilian chemical suits, there's made by tons of different companies. They're primarily industry ones. The ones by DuPont, which are the ones that I've heard the most about, are Tyvek and Tychem. These suits come in multiple different protection levels, down from just essentially a suit like this up to ones that had a face shield that you were supposed to wear, an air tank underneath, and it turns into a positive environment inside over gases, so that if there is a hole in the suit, it's going to gas out, keeping the agent out. The storage life on those suits, from what I looked up, they recommend 10 years. Service life from exposure, I could find very damn little. Pretty much nothing. All they said is go by manufacturer recommendations. When I looked up manufacturer recommendations, they didn't have any. Go figure. Now, out of all these suits, which are the best? I'd say probably this one because it's reusable. But it is a foreign suit. It's a Russian suit. It's a Warsaw Pact suit. So wearing something like this in the United States during some type of SHTF situation or civil war, well, guess what? Fellow patriots might consider you a foreign invader, just carrying US type equipment. Just be forewarned. Next one behind this I would recommend is the JSList. They're getting harder to get a hold of and they're getting a lot more expensive, but they are a good suit. Now, before I move on to boots, I just want to show you the U.S. chemical gloves. These are issued in a pack. You get cotton liners and rubber type gloves. These are left and rights. They are sized. Shelf life on these, well, as long as they don't get dry rot, they don't get super gummy, you can keep using them. But once they're exposed to a chemical and you are doing a mop gear exchange, is the official term for it for the this task, these get changed out with the suit. Now I will make this note also, if you get a tear on one of these and you are a prepper here in the United States, you want to restore the integrity of the suit, I would kind of recommend this stuff. It's Kapler chemical tape. Maybe I will put a link to it over on Amazon so that you can dig this up. This is authorized by the CDC and by different regulatory agencies like the EPA. This is authorized for use in chemical and biological environments. Your regular duct tape is not. This is, because this is non-permeable. Duct tape is. Duct tape, if it ends up with a chemical on it, the chemical will soak through. This will slow it down or stop it from penetrating. So this can be used, at least on the rubberized suits, to restore it to a contained environment fairly easily. And I would recommend, if you're that bad off, put a piece on the inside of the suit of the tear and a piece over the outside. And then make sure to press them together as best you can to seal it up. Do not use duct tape. I don't care what the hell you've seen on different YouTube videos from people who are acting like they're chemical experts. They're not. And you know what? I'm not either. I'm not an NBC specialist. I'm a combat engineer. But I do have time being part of unit decontamination teams. So we would run suit exchanges. We would run the decontamination showers. We would assist with decontaminating vehicles. I was also part of the unit's NBC reconnaissance team. When we're moving into an area, if we had questioned if chemical weapons had been used, or if we were hit in a NBC strike, our team then had to pull out our monitoring equipment and we had to figure out what type of agent it was, how much exposure there was, and call it up. So I probably know more on NBC CBRN warfare than some kid whose knowledge on this stuff is what he learned through video games. I say that because there is some kids out there who are recommending all you need in a chemical environment is a freaking suit made out of trash bags and duct tape. I've also seen recommendations of suits using civilian rain gear in a chemical environment. It may work in a biological, it should work in a nuclear if you seal it, but not a chemical environment. The rubber on these suits and the rubber that is in the lining on the NATO suits and the US suits are designed to protect against chemical agents. The rubber used in a civilian rain suit is not. Chemicals will be able to melt that rubber and seep through it. It's designed to, especially the newer chemical agents. We were warned before we went into Iraq that the Russians had chemical agents, and we were worried that they had passed them off to the Iraqis, that they had issued them the chemical agents that literally melt our protective masks. It was in production, it was in inventory, and that was 20-some years ago. They've only gotten worse since then. Research has not stopped, and we do not have all the information on the Chinese chemical programs, on how bad the stuff is. They have. Now we're going to go into some boots here. First one I'm going to show you is the oldest I have for NBC boots. And this is the type that was issued for the first Gulf War. These are a really good boot. I liked them. You put these on over your boots, over your uniform, and then obviously the legs of your chemical suit went over the top of it. There was laces on these that you ran through the eyelets here and then tighten the whole thing up over your foot. There was a semi-decent track pattern on the bottom, which gave you a decent traction. The problem with these boots was the rubber could be cut or torn easily. So they were replaced. And they were replaced with these. This is just essentially a wet weather boot, but the US military made sure they were made out of rubber that would work in a chemical environment also. So this became our NBC boot also. The previous ones were not sized specifically. These are. I have seen these in regulars, which is what this is. It's just a number. If it has a W next to it, it's a wide. I do not think I've ever seen a narrow. And these obviously tie up, cinch up using the 3 little bands here. Now, NATO did do their own versions of this stuff. I just have a couple examples here of what I could get on the market over the years. This is a Danish chemical overboot. These are sized, but I have a hell of a time trying to read the markings on these to figure out the size because they're in European shoe size. This is like the older chemical boot, like I showed you. The rubber on these do seem to be a little bit thicker, a little bit sturdier. So I've tried to get as many of these as I can. And then these down here, these are German. Where we went with the ties going across, the Germans went with zippers. These are supposed to be sized, but once again, it's in the weird European shoe sizes, so I have trouble telling the difference as to what the hell it's supposed to be good for. But it's the same type of thing as the US military's green and black ones. Goes over the top of your boots, of your footwear, inside your chemical suit. Now that's just a quick, dirty rundown of military items. Some of what's on the market, I do not know how much is on the market now. I do not know the current going prices. But there you go. If you want to know how to put a mop suit together, I did a video on that. I also did a video on training mop suits so that you could practice. I did a video on your ice pack, your individual chemical equipment pack or ice bag. Look for that stuff. If it's over on YouTube, there is a playlist for my NBC CBRN videos. If it's over on BitChute or over on Player, you're just going to have to search for them. Now, for all my engineer brothers in the Patriot and Militia movements, always remember, essayons.